not only do I get to fly all these cool airplanes, I get to share my passion and good fortune with you as well. So hope everybody out there, y'all need to kind of stay back that way, sorry. So hope everybody out there has a passion. This is obviously one of mine. If you do, you can look back at a time in your life when a little spark lit inside of you, kind of set you up on that path that brought you where you are today. Well, for me, this all started as simple as a song I heard on the radio when I was 13 years old. Y'all remember that song, Snoopy and Red Baron? Well, it had a different effect on me than it did you guys. Looks like a very nice day to go flying with Waldo. That's an original 1929 Barnstorming airplane. Anyway, so when I was a kid, I like to dream, I like to imagine, I like to build things. I like to bring my dreams into fruition. I'm still doing that, although they got a lot bigger and a lot more expensive. But anyway, that's how life goes. Everything keeps getting bigger and bigger. And anyway, so I flew models, and when I was 15 years old, I met a gentleman that was actually building his own home-built airplane in his garage, and the concept fascinated me. I helped him out a little bit. I went to his magazines. I found an airplane that I wanted to build one day. I bought a set of plans when I was 16 years old. I built most of my first flyable airplane before I graduated from high school. Taught myself how to weld. If you get a chance to go back in the Funwood Flight Center in the back of the hangar here, the little kids' room, when you walk in, it's the first airplane hanging up there. And there's pictures of me, early exploits, and my first little biplane I made when I was 8 years old. And anyway, so I think everybody, if you look back on your life now, you can see those little seeds that were planted along the way that, you know, kind of brought you where you are today. So it was very, very early in my case. And anyway, so while I was building my airplane that last year of high school, I also learned how to fly. I soloed, and I was competing on my high school's first-year gymnastic team. And it's funny how in life it's not always a straight line where we're supposed to, how we're supposed to get to where we're supposed to end up. Sometimes you have to take a little side street, you know, or meet somebody to meet somebody else to meet somebody to end up meeting somebody you need to meet. And anyway, in my case, I was never going to win any Olympic gymnastic medals, although I competed 3 years in high school and college. But what happened was, since I was used to flipping around in the gym, as soon as I started flying, I immediately gravitated towards flipping around in the sky. And so once I got my private pilot license, it enabled me to get checked out in an aerobatic airplane. I started competing in competition aerobatics. I started working my way up amongst the ranks. And I had a dream one day to make the U.S. aerobatic team. Well, I ended up dropping out of aeronautical engineering school at Purdue at the beginning of my sophomore year. I had no formal training in aeronautical engineering, and life had a different plan. I missed the first 2 weeks. That's a long story. But anyway, I quit. I went home. I designed my next airplane. I built it from scratch. I made the U.S. aerobatic team in it when I was 24 years old. Went to my first world championship the following year in Czechoslovakia. There was 61 competitors, 18 countries. I won 3 silvers and a bronze, and I ended up second overall in the world. And man, I was hooked. And on the way home, I was designing another big engine biplane. And over about 15 years with the team, I flew 6 world championships 5 times. I was top 3 overall in the world. Won 20 medals. I was 3-time U.S. national champion. And while all this was really ramping up in my mid-20s, there's some good fortune that my grandfather shared amongst my family that I did not grow up with. We'll let Waldo come in here. That's such a cool airplane. He's actually got 2 of them like that. So I call them Waldo and Waldo. Anyway, yeah, my grandfather. Yeah, so I ended up realizing that my financial future held the wherewithal to pursue my dreams. I loved old airplanes. I loved history. Started to collect them, wanted to share them with people. So I started a museum in Miami that was on an airport that was a county airport. It was a lease situation. And it took about 5 years to kind of get it all set up and come up with the idea and permit it and build it and open to the public. And in that 5-year period, I continued to collect airplanes. And by the time I opened the doors to the public, I had way out collected the facility. And I'm like, man, I'm not going through this again for more hangar space for something that I don't even own. So that life led me to Central Florida, specifically this piece of property, to begin to create what I'm creating here, to control my own destiny. So this was a quantum leap from the Miami facility, which is a typical tin hangar on an airport, This is all period, an Art Deco restaurant, and my own airport runways and everything. And anyway, but when we got up here and we opened, very quickly I realized there were not enough aviation enthusiasts to pay my light bill. Just out of curiosity, how many people have never been here before? That's a pretty good selection of hands. You're probably one of the millions of people that have driven by on I-4 always wondering what we were. So anyway, you're the reason why we're going to close, and I think everybody knows next weekend we're closed to the public, is because nobody knows what we are. And it's just been a really branding dilemma deal, and most people have no interest in old airplanes. But hopefully we deliver a lot more than that. We kind of bill ourselves as an aviation attraction. But what's going to kind of happen here is the museum in Miami was kind of like, when I opened that, all great stories have 3 acts, okay? She studied story structure. And the first act for me was when I opened the Weeks Air Museum in Miami. And the end of Act 1 was pretty much Hurricane Andrew in 1992. Completely, my whole hangar collapsed on all my airplanes. I've been working on Fantasy of Flight for about 4 years, and literally 4 months after the hurricane hit Andrew, they handed me the permits to build Fantasy of Flight. And so when Fantasy of Flight opened here in 1995, that was kind of the beginning of Act 2, okay? Well, next weekend is the end of Act 2. So after a short intermission, go to the bathroom and grab some popcorn. Act 3 is going to begin. The third time is going to be the charm for us. So this has been a passion of mine. It's been a great blessing for me to be able to share this with people. But in 30 years, it's never paid the light bill. So I want to create something that will touch everybody. Had this been the crowds all along, it'd be business as usual, but it hasn't been. So I appreciate y'all coming out. But what I realized was very quickly, when we opened, that not everybody liked airplanes. And I know there's a lot of airplane enthusiasts in the crowd, but at the same time, there's probably some drag-along kids and spouses of whoopie-doo. We're going to go look at old airplanes. Well, I can tell you, in the long run, you're my future clientele. The airplane guys are going to love me no matter what I do, because I do everything at a very high level. So as I pondered this, okay, I realized not everybody likes airplanes, but as I pondered, what can I create? What can I deliver that touches everybody that walks in my door? And what I came to realize was, it wasn't about airplanes. It was about the one thing that we can all relate to, and that's the metaphor of flight. Everybody at some level may not like airplanes, but everybody at some level has a fascination for flight. Because I defy you to come up with a better metaphor for pushing our boundaries, reaching beyond ourselves and freedom. You can't do it. And in the physical, everybody in their own way can relate to reaching for the sky, reaching for the stars, and within us, we soar in our imagination, we fly in our dreams. That's got nothing to do with airplanes. That has everything to do with you going beyond what you perceive yourself to be. And that's where Fantasy of Flight's headed. And that's actually what it's been about all along. It just took me 15 years to realize it. I've kind of been set up. It's like I've been given all the tools and the passion and the initial finances to kind of create this. And it's kind of like, this is what I came to this planet for, was to create what I'm about to create. So keep an eye on us. This existing facility that you're getting to enjoy right now, this is not closing. From day one, this was only ever designed to be my shop, okay? This was going to be for the maintenance of the collection. This will be for the restoration of the collection. All the supporting shops and project shops are around it. So all the immersive environments, Fighter Town, the Officers Club, that stuff all goes. And Fantasy of Flight has always been envisioned to be in the big open field behind me, and that's why the arch gate entrance is over there. Because this just, in the long run, becomes a backlot tour. And eventually, when we build things out over here, every period airplane that we display, from early flight through the early jets in Korea, will be housed in their own period environment. So you got pioneer, turn of the century, magnificent men of the flying machines. Kind of like when you go into early flight, it'll look like that. We're going to have a World War I airfield with opposing sides. A couple of areas dedicated to the golden age of aviation, which was the late 20s, early 30s. This whole area here, with at least 4 hangars across the way, an early control tower by the windsock, will reflect late 30s, early 40s, what you would have seen during World War II and later. And way behind me, you can see we have a lake. That's one of the reasons why we chose the property here. And I've flown the big 4-engine flying boat down there. All of the flying seaplanes. They're going to go down by the lake there. We're going to do a 1930 recreation of a Pan Am Clipper base.
Cool.
So restaurant on the roof, palm trees, you know, some little girls. That's my favorite part. Anyway, but I'm not here to teach you about airplanes, and I'm not here to teach you about history. What Fantasy of Flight is going to do in this aspect of what I'm going to create is basically use history to teach you about yourself. The lessons of humanity have not changed. They're never going to change. Technology may change the means of delivery, but in this concept that we're drawn beyond ourselves, which is what Fantasy of Flight's all about, is timeless. I mean, 10,000 years ago today, and in a million years, we're going to be drawn beyond ourselves as a human species. And the little logo that I created a long time ago, we used to have them on the stickers and the armbands, but anyway, I don't know if you can really see this, but it's a bird, a little crescent moon, and a star. I created it 20 years ago, now realizing it was symbolic of the concept of Fantasy of Flight. The bird was what we were fascinated in the past with flight. The present is symbolized by the crescent moon because we've been there and back, and the star symbolizes our future, something that is always beyond ourselves. So we have tons of potential within us to discover who we are, and we always have the ability, no matter where we get, to imagine beyond ourselves. So that's what Fantasy of Flight's going to tap into. We'll let the Waco get back in here. What happened to... Oh, he's over there getting fuel. Yeah, I got all three running today. That's a 30s airplane right there. Probably mid-30s. Anyway, so in the long run, you know, we're going to have all the different places over there, but in the end, it's really more about you know, self-discovering yourself. And what I want to do is I want to take the existing industry up the street with the big theme parks, and I want to deliver something completely different. That industry in and of itself has no purpose or interest to me. It is a means to an end that has phenomenal potential. So down here, we're going to be the antithesis of what's up the street. Everything here is going to be based on things that are real, things that are, we all experience on this journey through life, and we're going to deliver it in a way on at least a Disney quality, maybe one day a Disney scale, where you come through a future theme park, you walk in the gate one person, you leave a completely different person. The take-home value is here and here. Nobody tells you anything. You self-discover it for yourself. And I think if I can deliver that, I'm onto something pretty big, and that's where we're headed. If you get a chance, if you're interested, there's some little pink numbered signs around the hangar with audio or headphones on them. Those are audio stop tours. We rent them up in the gift shop. We've only got about 15 to rent. But I also sell an audio CD. This is kind of a template if you're interested in how's it going to do this, you know. These are just audio experiences where you listen to them like old-time radio. We take themes common to the human experience, we deliver it through entertainment, and in a way that you can self-discover something about yourself. So check those out. Just a real quick example about things that are real. I knew I needed creative characters for the park, and I figured, well, a children's book would be a good way to do it. I looked around the hangar, I looked at the GBs, and if you just put eyes on them, they already look like cartoon characters. Just in the back of the hangar here, everybody recognizes the thing, this yellow airplane sitting in the back of the hangar. Well, I took 10 original, I got to mention too, this book came out 6 years before Disney planes, okay? And so anyway, so I took 10 real historic airplanes from the golden age of aviation, most of which I've got on site here at Fantasy of Flight. I hired some Disney-trained illustrators. They did a phenomenal job with the artwork. And so that's really an example of how things are based on things that are real. But it's also a personal example of what our whole concept and future product's about. I had to figure this out. I had a dilemma when I started this. Everybody's interested in the big tents down there. I'm covering Sun and Fun Flying this next weekend in Lakeland. Next Thursday, we host a splash in here. If the weather's good, we're going to have over 100 airplanes down there on the lake and the shoreline. So come out and see us. Also next weekend is Mustangs and Mustangs. I'll be flying both my P-51s Usually I get a couple of my friends fly in, and we should have about 400 or 500 Ford Mustangs here as well. So that's probably the biggest event that we do during the year. Anyway, so I had a dilemma when I went to write this book. I never did well in English. And so I talked to grade school teachers, I figured it out, I self-published it, and if you go up into the gift shop where we sell the books and some of the plush and stuff, hats and all that, there's a big framed piece of art. Out of 65 contestant entries, my first book ever, C's and D's in English. I got a bronze independent book publisher award. That's pretty cool, huh? So what happened was, I discovered potential within myself that I didn't know that I had. So that was pretty neat. Now guess what? I love to write children's books. This is my second one. Everybody recognizes Lindy in the back there. I'm finishing up my third one right now with the artist, and it's a really cool feathered character. As a parallel, if I was Walt Disney, I'm creating my Mickey Mouse. And this first book, I think, is going to put me on the map. It completely explains and expresses the whole concept of fantasy of flight, and every one of you in the crowd is going to look at this character and go, that's me. It is so cool. I'm so excited about this. And people are going to read this book. It's a kid's book written in an adult way, but in reality it's an adult book written in a kid's way. And when you read this, you're going to go, you're not going to be able to look at your life the same after you read this book. I'm very excited about it. So anyway, the airplane I'm going to fly today that I was just warming up is a North American P-51 Mustang. It's got to be the sexiest airplane to come out of World War II. And after I fly, you will agree it is the coolest sound and engine propeller combination that was ever made. There's just something about the engine prop combination here. This is powered by a Rolls-Royce. It's a British design Merlin engine. It's a V12, so there's 6 exhaust stacks coming out each side. It's liquid cooled, and the coolant radiator and the oil cooler and that little scoop on the bottom below the pilot. I'm ashamed to admit, in a fuel-conscious environment, this engine is 1,500 horsepower on takeoff. And on takeoff, I will be burning a gallon of fuel every 20 seconds. I don't think we're going to deplete the resources of the planet anytime soon, flying at 15 minutes every other day. But anyway, but once I get up in the air, I get the landing gear up, I pick up a little speed. I kind of bring the throttle back to what I'm going to use will be a cruise setting. If I was going on a cross country, I'll use a cruise setting for my flybys. It comes back to a very economical gallon per minute. If you compute that for one guy at the speed you're going, it works out to about 4.5 miles per gallon. It's not as efficient as some of the hybrids, Dave, but you got to admit you're going in style. This particular airplane is painted up in the colors of Colonel Lee Archer. Lee was the highest scoring Tuskegee pilot in World War II. The Tuskegee Airmen were the black fighter pilots that flew for the United States during the war, and their signature markings was the red tail and the red nose. These are Lee's personal markings. We've always done a Tuskegee Symposium for Black History Month, which was last month, and Lee was with us up until 3 years ago. He's no longer with us. We had 3 of the guys here last February, and I was the first guy ever to paint an airplane up in the Tuskegee Airmen's colors. This was about 10 years ago. And I was like, why has nobody done this? It was such a great story. Of course, now everybody's on the bandwagon, which is a cool deal because the guys certainly earned it and certainly deserved the honor. Does anybody have any questions about my self-fantasy flight of the airplane? I'll answer anything. Say again? When are we going to reopen? Well, what we're going to do is, this is going to begin to morph into the shop. We're going to focus on private events and corporate parties, which takes a minimal staff with a big upside. By the end of the year, we're probably going to take that hangar over there. We're just going to open a typical museum. No amenities, no Golden Hill, no airplane of the day, no restaurant. So part of the collection is a not-for-profit, and we need to show that to the public. So that's going to happen probably over there by Thanksgiving. And this thing here, I've got to design this. I got to figure out how I'm going to pay for it. And all I can tell you is, my hope is I open before the end of the decade. That's all I can tell you. I tell you what, let me go flying, and when I come back, I'm happy to answer more questions. And, thank you all for coming out. Hopefully light that spark within. That's our mission statement. Tell your friends. Have a great day.
Thank you for what you did.